My name is Olivia Patterson. I'm 35 years old, and I work as a financial analyst at a major investment firm in Chicago. The job pays well, really well. Not in a flashy, Instagram-worthy way, but in the quiet, stabilizing way that lets you breathe easier at night. Over the years, that stability allowed me to build a life that felt deliberately mine. A modern condo downtown, clean lines, neutral colors, no clutter, no chaos. And then there was the lake house, a small but beautiful place tucked away in northern Wisconsin, surrounded by pine trees and water so still in the mornings it looked like glass. I bought it on my own. No inheritance, no family help, just years of discipline, long hours, and saying no when other people said yes. The lake house was my sanctuary, the place I went when my head felt too loud, the place where no one interrupted me mid-sentence, the place where I could finally hear myself think. I usually drove up on summer weekends, sometimes stayed a full week if work allowed. Occasionally in the fall, just to watch the leaves turn and remind myself that time could be beautiful without being loud. It was about a 4-hour drive from Chicago. My family lived in Iowa, about 6 hours away from the lake house. That distance wasn't accidental. If I'm being honest, it saved me. I showed up for the important things: holidays, birthdays, major events. But the rest of the time, I lived my own life, separate, quiet, undisturbed by the constant hum of family expectations. My parents, Gloria and Frank, were both in their early 60s, retired, comfortable, but always somehow just short of enough. Then there was my younger sister, Amanda. Amanda was 32, married to Brett, and had spent her entire life being the center of our family's orbit. From the moment she was born, everything revolved around her. What Amanda wanted, what Amanda needed, what Amanda was doing. I stopped competing for attention when I was 16. That was the year I realized no matter how hard I tried, I would never shine brighter than my sister in my parents' eyes. So I did what I've always done best. I built something of my own. Years earlier, I'd given my family spare keys to the lake house. At the time, it felt reasonable, generous, family-minded. They used it a few times a year, always cleaned up and never overstepped. Until they did. That April, I drove to Iowa for Amanda's birthday. She was hosting a dinner at our parents' house. I brought her an expensive gift, luxury bath products from a boutique she loved, the kind with a French name she liked to casually drop into conversations. The dinner unfolded exactly as I expected. Everyone gathered around the table, praising Amanda's recent promotion, Brett's new Tesla, their plans to renovate their kitchen with marble countertops and custom cabinets. My mother asked me, "So, Olivia, how are you doing?" Every single time I tried to answer, Amanda jumped in with another story about herself. After the third interruption, I stopped trying. I ate my lasagna. I smiled when required. I listened while everyone spoke about my sister as if she were a miracle instead of just favored. Near the end of dinner, Amanda looked at me casually and asked, "So, what are you doing with your lake house this summer?" I shrugged. Same as always. Going up there to relax. Maybe renting it out for a week or two. My parents exchanged a look. I noticed it, but I didn't understand it yet. The next morning, I drove back to Chicago. Life resumed. Work swallowed my attention. I was deep into a major merger analysis when my phone started buzzing nonstop. The family group chat. Amanda had posted, "We've thought it all through, and we're taking Olivia's lake house for the entire summer." Thumbs up emojis. Party poppers. Sunshine icons. No one had asked me. Not once. I stared at my phone, rereading the message, my chest tightening as realization settled in. They hadn't planned with me. They'd planned around me. And that was the moment everything began to split into before and after. For a full minute, I didn't type anything. I just sat there at my desk, staring at the family group chat as messages continued to pour in. Cheerful, oblivious, celebratory. My Aunt Sharon chimed in first. "Oh, wonderful. I'll come up for the 4th of July. Then my cousin Kyle, count us in for a few weekends. My cousin Vanessa followed. Perfect timing. We'll make it our vacation this year. Each message landed like a small slap. Still, no one tagged me. No one asked. No one even acknowledged that the lake house belonged to me. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not explosive anger. Not yet. Something colder, sharper. The familiar feeling of being erased while sitting in the room. I finally typed, "You should have asked me first. I'm planning to spend most of June there alone. I need a break and I don't want visitors." I read it twice before sending. Calm, Clear, reasonable. The backlash was instant. Amanda replied first. Wow, that's really selfish, Olivia. Brett jumped in. Come on, it's just a house. We're family. My Aunt Sharon added, This house belongs to all of us in spirit. My Uncle Pete followed. You shouldn't talk like that about family. My phone buzzed so hard it rattled against my desk. I tried again. It's my property. I pay the mortgage. I decide who stays there. No one acknowledged that part. Instead, my mother sent the message that finally snapped something inside me. Everyone just ignore Olivia. She'll come around and do what we want in the end. A laughing emoji followed, then a heart. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking, not from rage, but from something deeper, recognition. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was how they had always seen me. Reliable, quiet, useful. Not someone who said no, not someone whose boundaries mattered. Over the years, I had paid for things no one thanked me for. A new refrigerator when my parents died, a washer and dryer, furnace repairs, half of Amanda's car payments, medical bills for aunts and uncles, emergency flights, dental work. I had told myself it was generosity. Now I saw it for what it really was. Expectation. And when I finally didn't comply, they didn't feel embarrassed. They felt offended. I closed the chat without responding again. At exactly 2:17 p.m., I opened my calendar and requested 3 days off work, citing a personal matter. My boss approved it within minutes. I rarely took time off, no questions asked. By 3 p.m., I was on the road. The drive to the lake house usually took 4 hours. I made it in 3.5. My jaw stayed clenched the entire way. I didn't turn on music. I didn't take calls. I didn't let myself spiral. I focused. The next morning, I called a security company. They arrived that afternoon. Cameras went up first. Front door, back door, driveway, dock. Then the alarm system. Motion sensors, automatic alerts, direct police notification if anyone tried to force entry. When they were done, I called a locksmith. Every lock was changed. Every key invalidated. I stood on the deck afterward, looking out at the water, the late afternoon sun glinting off the surface. My phone buzzed again. Messages, calls, voicemails piling up. I didn't listen to a single one. I drove back to Chicago that night. Over the next few weeks, I checked the cameras regularly. Nothing. No cars, no footsteps, no attempts. They were waiting. Assuming. Then, at the end of May, Amanda posted again. Tomorrow we're all heading to Olivia's lake house. Who's confirmed? My parents replied immediately. We'll be there. Aunt Sharon, wouldn't miss it. Uncle Pete, count us in. Cousins followed. I smiled for the first time since this started. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, watching the live feed. My coffee grew cold in my favorite mug. Around noon, the first car pulled in. Amanda and Brett, her Tesla gleaming in the sun. Then my parents' Buick. Then 2 more cars. They stepped out laughing, unloading coolers, beach chairs, grocery bags, planning to stay. Amanda walked up to the door first. She tried her key. It didn't fit. She tried again, jiggled it, turned it the other way. Nothing. Brett stepped in. Same result. Confusion spread across their faces. They talked, gestured. Brett pointed up. The camera. Every head tilted back. The moment they realized what I'd done was unmistakable. My phone started ringing. Mom. Ignored. Amanda. Voicemail. Brett. Ignored. Then the group chat exploded. She's lost her mind. We drove 6 hours for this. How could you do this to your own family? This is unacceptable. Then Brett typed, I'm going to break down this door. I laughed out loud and replied, If you do, the alarm will trigger and the police will be notified. You'll be arrested for trespassing and breaking and entering. Try me. I watched them read it. Anger drained from their faces and was replaced with fear. Within minutes, they retreated. Bags back in trunks. Doors slammed. Cars pulled away one by one. Silence returned to the lake. I closed my laptop and finally finished my coffee. That evening, my mother called again. This time I answered. How could you do this to us? She demanded. I didn't raise my voice. I warned you. You ignored me. But we're family. Family doesn't take what isn't theirs. She sputtered, accused, pleaded. I ended it simply. And I'm done helping financially. No more transfers, no more payments, no more bailouts. There was silence. I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The morning after I cut them off financially, my phone felt heavier than usual in my hand. Not because it weighed more, but because I knew what waited inside it. Missed calls, voicemails, text messages stacked on top of each other like layers of noise I no longer wanted to hear. I didn't check them right away. Instead, I went to work. That alone felt like rebellion. For years, whenever my family had a crisis, real or manufactured, I dropped everything. Meetings rescheduled, deadlines pushed. My life paused so theirs could continue uninterrupted. That day, I walked into the office like nothing had happened. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and dove into spreadsheets as if I hadn't just detonated decades of family expectations. Around noon, curiosity got the better of me. I opened my messages. The emotional progression was almost textbook. The first wave was rage. You're cruel. You're destroying this family. How could you humiliate us like that? Then came the guilt. We just wanted to spend time together. Your parents are heartbroken. Family helps family. By evening, the tone shifted again. We're sorry if you felt disrespected. Let's talk this out. You didn't have to go this far. I noticed something important. No one apologized for assuming the lake house was theirs. They apologized for how I reacted. That told me everything I needed to know. I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, I packed my car and drove north. This time not out of anger, but intention. The moment I pulled into the driveway of the lake house, something inside me unclenched. The air smelled like pine and water. The lake stretched out in front of me, calm and endless. No cars, no voices, no expectations, just quiet. I spent the next 14 days alone, and it was glorious. Every morning, I swam in the lake as the sun rose, the water cold enough to wake every nerve ending in my body. I made coffee slowly, without rushing. I read books cover to cover without interruption. I cooked meals just for myself, steaks on the grill, fresh fish from the local market, vegetables sautéed exactly the way I liked them. I hiked nearby trails. I kayaked until my arms ached. No one asked me for anything. No one assumed they were entitled to my space. Every evening, I sat on the deck and watched the sunset in silence, letting the sky turn pink and orange and deep purple without commentary. Occasionally, I checked the security cameras. Nothing. They hadn't tried to come back. Good. During those quiet days, I thought a lot about my family, about how early the pattern started, how often I'd mistaken compliance for love, how often I'd told myself, it's easier this way. It had been easier for everyone else. When I returned to Chicago, something had shifted. I felt lighter, sharper, less willing to bend. I threw myself back into work with a focus that surprised even me. My boss commented on it during a meeting, praising my clarity and leadership. A major acquisition project landed on my desk soon after. High visibility, high stakes. For the first time in years, my life felt balanced. I joined a book club, signed up for a pottery class on Thursday nights. I started spending time with friends who didn't treat generosity like an obligation. 2 months after the lake house incident, my mother texted, "It's my birthday next week. We'd really like to see you. We want to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Continue the silence. Protect the peace I'd finally found. Another part of me, the part that still cared, was curious. So I replied, "I'll come for the weekend." I bought her a small gift, a simple candle from Target. Nothing extravagant, nothing symbolic, just appropriate. As I drove to my parents' house that Saturday, my chest tightened, not with dread, but caution. I wasn't going back as the fixer. I was going back as myself. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw several familiar cars. Amanda and Brett, a couple of aunts and uncles, of course. Before I could knock, the door opened. My mother stood there, her smile strained. "I'm so glad you came," she said. "Happy birthday," I replied, handing her the gift. The living room felt heavy. Everyone looked uncomfortable, unsure where to place their eyes. Amanda sat stiffly beside Brett. My father cleared his throat from his recliner. Finally, Amanda stood. "We want to apologize," she said. "All of us." Brett nodded. My Aunt Sharon spoke next. Then Uncle Pete. One by one, they acknowledged their behavior. Not perfectly, but sincerely. "We took you for granted," my mother said quietly. "We made everything about Amanda. We assumed your help, your money, your house, and we never thanked you." I listened without interrupting. When they finished, the room fell silent. "I'm willing to communicate again," I said finally, "but things are going to be different." They nodded quickly. "I'm not the family ATM anymore," I continued. "My property is mine, and my boundaries are not negotiable." No one argued. That was new. The evening remained awkward, but manageable. Conversation stayed surface level. Amanda asked about my work and for once actually listened. As I drove home that night, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt cautiously hopeful. Over the next few months, my family made an effort. My mother called once a week just to talk. Amanda texted occasionally. My father sent articles he thought I'd find interesting. And they respected my boundaries. When my mom mentioned their water heater acting up, she didn't ask for money. When Amanda complained about rising insurance rates, she didn't hint. At work, the acquisition closed successfully. My promotion to senior director was confirmed. And somewhere in the middle of all that, without drama, without urgency, I met someone. His name was Andrew. We met through my book club. He was thoughtful, calm, a good listener. When I told him about my family and the lake house, he shook his head in disbelief. "You did the right thing," he said. "Boundaries don't make you cruel." It was the first time I heard that from someone who had nothing to gain, and it mattered more than I expected. The first real test came quietly. No shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just a phone call on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I was in my condo, barefoot in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta, when my phone lit up with my mother's name. For a moment, I considered letting it ring. Old habits tugged at me. Conditioning, really. The instinct to brace myself, to prepare for whatever need was about to be placed in my lap. But I answered, "Hi, Mom." There was a pause on the other end, a hesitation I wasn't used to. "Hi, Olivia," she said, softer than usual. "I just wanted to talk." Talk. That word used to mean ask. We exchanged a few minutes of harmless conversation. Weather, a neighbor's dog, an article my dad had read. Then, gently, almost casually, she mentioned that their hot water heater had been making strange noises. Not broken, not urgent, just mentioned. In the past, that would have been my cue. I would have offered without being asked, already mentally calculating costs, already preparing to transfer money. This time I didn't. "I hope it's nothing serious," I said calmly. Another pause. "Yes," she replied. "We'll have someone look at it." We hung up a few minutes later. I stood there in my kitchen, pasta forgotten on the stove, heart racing as if I'd just run a mile. It shouldn't have felt so monumental, to simply not offer, but it did. That was when I understood how deeply wired my role had been. Provider, problem solver, backup plan. Not daughter, not sister, not equal. Andrew noticed the shift before anyone else did. We were sitting on my couch one evening, wine glasses balanced on our knees, when he asked, "Do you feel different lately?" "In a good way or a bad way?" I asked. He smiled. "In a steadier way." I thought about it. "I think I finally stopped waiting for permission to protect myself," I said. He nodded like that made perfect sense. My family didn't implode without my financial support. That surprised me. They adjusted. My parents replaced the water heater on their own. Amanda covered her expenses without commentary. No emergencies suddenly spiraled into catastrophe just because I wasn't there to absorb the impact. That realization brought a strange mix of relief and grief. Relief, because it meant I hadn't been as essential as they'd led me to believe. Grief, because it meant I'd been carrying weight I never needed to. 3 months after my mother's birthday, Amanda called. Not texted, called. "Hey," she said cautiously, "do you have a minute?" "I do." She took a breath. "I just wanted to say thank you for coming to Mom's birthday and for not cutting us off completely." "I didn't cut you off," I replied. "I reset things." There was a pause, then a quiet laugh. "Yeah, that." She hesitated again, then added, "I didn't realize how much you were doing for everyone. Not really. Losing that safety net was eye-opening." I let that sit. "I should have said this a long time ago," she continued. "I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't poetic, but it was honest." "That means something," I said, and I meant it. A few weeks later, she asked, carefully, respectfully, if I'd ever consider letting her and Brett visit the lake house someday. "Not yet," I answered. "I understand," she said immediately. No argument, no guilt. After we hung up, I sat in silence, absorbing that moment. She had asked. Not assumed, not demanded, asked. Progress didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived with restraint. My life outside my family continued to expand. Work consumed me in the best way. I led meetings with confidence I hadn't felt before. When my promotion to senior director officially went through, my boss shook my hand and said, "You've earned this." I believed him. Andrew and I grew closer, naturally, without pressure. He didn't rush things, didn't try to fix me or my past. He listened. He remembered details. He respected my space. That mattered more than grand gestures ever could. 6 months after the lake house incident, my mother invited me to dinner, just my parents this time. I agreed. No ambush awaited me when I arrived. No surprise guests. Just the three of us sitting at the kitchen table I'd grown up with. My father spoke first. "I want you to know," he said, "we're proud of you, not just for your career." I waited. "For standing up for yourself," he finished. "We should have done better by you." My mother nodded, eyes glossy. "We're trying to learn." I appreciated the effort, but I didn't mistake it for transformation. People don't change overnight. They change through repetition. Consistency. Boundaries tested and respected over time. The lake house remained off limits. I went there often, sometimes alone, sometimes with Andrew. The security cameras stayed. The locks stayed. Some might call that holding a grudge. I called it honoring a lesson learned the hard way. Late one summer evening, Andrew and I sat on the deck, watching the sun dip behind the trees. The lake was still, peaceful. "Do you ever think about letting them back in?" he asked gently. "I think about it," I admitted, "but thinking and acting aren't the same thing." He nodded. "You don't owe anyone access." I leaned my head against his shoulder, letting that truth settle. For the first time in my life, I wasn't managing anyone else's expectations. I was managing my own, and that changed everything. A full year passed before I seriously considered opening the lake house door again. Not physically, I never stopped going there, but emotionally. Time has a way of sanding down sharp edges, not erasing them, just making them easier to hold without bleeding. My family and I had settled into something new, not closeness, not distance either, something careful, controlled. My parents called once a week. Amanda texted occasionally. We exchanged updates, not expectations. No one asked for money. No one hinted. When problems came up, they solved them. On their own. That was still the strangest part to me. The old version of our family ran on my quiet compliance. The new one had learned how to stand without leaning on me. Andrew noticed the shift before I admitted it to myself. We were cooking dinner together in my condo, him chopping vegetables, me stirring sauce, when he said casually, "You don't tense up when your phone rings anymore." I paused. He was right. There had been a time when every call from my family made my shoulders rise automatically, bracing for impact. Now, the sound barely registered as a threat. "I guess I finally believe that no doesn't mean disaster," I said. He smiled. "That's a hard lesson." It was. The question of the lake house returned gradually, not as pressure, but as possibility. Amanda was the first to bring it up again. She called one afternoon while I was folding laundry. "Hey," she said, "I know you said not yet last time, and I completely respect that. I just wanted to check in. No expectations." I waited. "I was wondering," she continued carefully, "if maybe someday, like next summer or something, you'd consider letting Brett and me visit. Just us. Just for a weekend. We'd ask permission. Follow whatever rules you set." There it was. No assumption, no entitlement, no emotional manipulation. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "That's okay," she replied immediately. "Thank you for even considering it." After we hung up, I sat on my bed, staring at the wall. She had done everything right, which somehow made the decision harder. Andrew and I talked about it that evening while walking along the river. The city lights reflected off the water, stretching into something softer than steel and concrete. "What do you want?" he asked. Not what was fair, not what would keep the peace. What I wanted. "I want to believe they've changed," I said, "but I don't want to be naive." He nodded. Trust doesn't have to be all or nothing. That stayed with me. A few weeks later, Amanda called again. This time her voice was hesitant, but steady. "I know I've asked before," she said, "and I don't want to push. But if there's ever a time you'd feel comfortable trying, I'd really appreciate the chance." 3 asks, each one respectful, each one followed by acceptance of my hesitation. I heard myself say it before I fully processed it. "What if you came for one weekend next month?" There was silence on the other end. "Really?" she asked. "Yes, just you and Brett, no one else, and there will be rules." "Of course," she said quickly, "whatever you want." When we hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the weight of choosing. The weekend approached slowly, then all at once. I drove up to the lake house the day before they were scheduled to arrive. I cleaned, not because it needed it, but because I needed the ritual. I checked the security cameras, tested the locks, made sure every boundary was intact. I was nervous. Not about them damaging the house, about them damaging the progress. Amanda and Brett arrived exactly when they said they would. No early arrival, no surprise additions. They brought their own groceries. their own towels, their own everything. They didn't ask where anything was stored. They didn't complain. They didn't invite anyone else. They swam, kayaked, sat on the deck quietly. Brett even fixed a loose railing without mentioning it. On Sunday morning, Amanda brewed coffee and cleaned the kitchen without being asked. When they packed up to leave, the house looked exactly the way it had before they arrived. Before getting into the car, Amanda hugged me. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for trusting us again." "You earned it," I replied. After they left, I walked through the house slowly, checking for messes that weren't there, damage that hadn't happened. I felt something unexpected. Pride. Not in them. In myself. I had allowed access without surrendering control. That was new. Andrew and I got engaged a few months later. The proposal was simple, thoughtful. Just us. When I told my family, their reaction surprised me. No jealousy, no hijacking, just genuine happiness. My mother offered to help with planning, then waited for my response. Amanda asked if she could be in the wedding party. I said yes, not out of obligation, out of choice. At the engagement party, my father pulled me aside. "I know last year was hard," he said, "but I want you to know we learned something." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "That love doesn't mean unlimited access," he said, "and respect isn't automatic. It's earned." I swallowed. That conversation, he added, changed us. As I drove home that night, ring heavy on my finger, heart full but guarded, I realized something important. I hadn't fixed my family. I'd fixed my place within it. And that made all the difference. A year after the lake house incident, I sat at my kitchen island in Chicago, surrounded by wedding planning spreadsheets, fabric swatches, and half-empty coffee cups, and realized something strange. I wasn't anxious. Not about my family, not about money, not about whether someone would overstep if I wasn't watching closely enough. That constant low-level tension, the one I'd carried for most of my adult life, was gone. Andrew leaned against the counter across from me, reviewing a guest list. "Your parents already RSVP'd," he said, "and they didn't ask to invite anyone extra." I looked up at him. "They didn't?" He smiled. "Nope, just the two of them." That might sound insignificant to anyone else. To me, it was proof. Our relationship had settled into something sustainable, not perfect, not storybook, but respectful. We talked regularly, holidays, birthdays, occasional check-ins, but no one monopolized my time. When I visited Iowa, it was planned in advance. When my parents came to Chicago, they stayed at a hotel and asked before stopping by. That alone told me how much had changed. Amanda was different too. She paid her own bills. She didn't hint, didn't joke about me helping out like before. She talked about her work, her life, and, sometimes, asked about mine without redirecting the conversation back to herself. When she did ask for advice, she listened. That had never happened before. The lake house remained my sanctuary. I still went there often, sometimes alone, sometimes with Andrew. The security cameras stayed, the new locks stayed. Only I had the keys. Some people might see that as paranoia. I saw it as clarity. One late summer weekend, I was at the lake house alone, sitting on the deck with my feet propped up on the railing, watching the water ripple under a warm breeze. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Andrew called. "Hey," he said, "I was thinking about something." I smiled. "That usually means you're about to ask a very reasonable question." He laughed. "You know me too well." He paused, then continued. "Do you think you'll ever let the whole family visit the lake house again? All of them, I mean." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the sky. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe, maybe not." "And either answer is okay," he said gently. "Yes," I replied. "That's the part I finally understand." He didn't push, didn't analyze, didn't try to lead me toward some emotionally neat conclusion. He trusted me to know my own limits. That trust mattered. A few weeks later, Amanda called. "Hey," she said, "I just wanted to say thank you again, for last time. Brett and I still talk about it. We know how much that weekend meant." "You respected the rules," I said simply. "That's why it worked." There was a pause. "I'm really proud of you," she said. "And I'm glad we're better now." "So am I replied. And I meant it. Wedding planning continued without drama. My mother offered help and accepted no when I declined. My father focused on logistics and stayed in his lane. Amanda participated without trying to take control. At the engagement party, surrounded by friends, laughter, and music, my father pulled me aside. "I want you to know something," he said quietly. I looked at him. You standing up for yourself last year, he continued, that forced us to look at ourselves, at how we treated you, and it wasn't easy. I didn't do it to teach anyone a lesson, I said. I did it to survive. He nodded. I know, but it taught us one anyway. That conversation meant more to me than any apology ever had. Now, as I sit here planning a future with Andrew, one built on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and clear boundaries, I think about how different my life is from a year ago. I'm a senior director now, with a career I'm proud of. I have friends who don't treat generosity like obligation. I have a partner who doesn't confuse love with access. And I have a family who finally understands that love doesn't mean ownership. The lake house still stands quietly by the water, cameras watching, locks secure. It might seem excessive, but it's a reminder. A reminder that I built something for myself. A reminder that saying no doesn't make me selfish. A reminder that boundaries don't destroy families. Entitlement does. I don't give money to family members anymore. I don't offer solutions unless I'm asked. I don't assume responsibility for problems that aren't mine. And somehow, because of that, the relationships I do have are healthier than they've ever been. My family has shown they can respect those boundaries. But I'm not naive enough to think the risk is completely gone. That's why I stay aware. That's why I choose carefully. That's why the lake house remains, first and foremost, mine. Family doesn't automatically deserve unlimited access to your life, your space, or your resources. Love and respect have to go both ways. And now, finally, they do.